distinction. He will walk right through one.
I'm sure that is not something you hear a lot, but or a lot of people. But we definitely need that cultural and promote culture with appreciation. I can't believe this ideology has persisted, obviously, with people that look like the Muslim because we're trying to gatekeep our culture because of obviously a lot of the theft that is happening in the us. We are not gonna remedy that by doing a gatekeep. The only way to remedy it is by sharing what we got and check them out, having other people value us who are really able to really build on. I don't think you can promote cultural while at the same time being mad about someone without harming or without anything. They don't know your name. The only way for them to know it, so this is a book getting a sign from at the Not Shy of the Shy podcast and shoot by this. I hope everybody is able to look into this ourselves because the reality is most movements as political people that really talk to this are like we're killing in gloves. That's the word. Are very much indisciplined. They think rigid, need a schedule, be yelled at, be told to play. It's just being a disciple of an ideology. Word this and so you break it down and you just want to be a disciple of symbol or ideology that is that's not to yourself but you're surrounded surrounding it all. Make sure the melanin shine, obviously. Beautiful co-host Falls. How y'all doing? CEO of Shy Productions here. My name is Suleiman Haruna Iya. Yes, first name Suleiman, last name Haruna Iya. I want to be able to just not just challenge people, change their paradigm and stuff, but challenge myself too, and holding myself. Yeah, yeah,
And it may be easier at times because it's being so disciplined in this work that you want to go, oh, yeah. It's if you don't do it, that's the separating factor, right? Like
yeah.
usually that if you're not disciplined, that's the difference between the mediocre or the average or right.
Nah, for sure.
Now, yes, you've kind of fallen into, but you're into a different
For stage.
stage in your life.
Right.
Then you look at have more time to then process, even though your brain is so quickly used to making fast decisions.
Nah, definitely.
And now maybe shifting that mindset a bit will help you too, then to be able to say, you know,
Pivot into the not shy with shy pod. I mean, obviously that's the best way to look at it because and for the audience that we've just been saying sport in this context we're talking about football or soccer, we're in New York so people say soccer, but around the world obviously in different name but
it's a beautiful unifying thing, and most people don't appreciate that
nah.
sport can bring us all together.
Yeah.
Young men look up to these other athletes.
Yeah.
That it doesn't
Yeah.
matter color, your age.
Different mindsets and different ideologies. Definitely, sports can always be that connecting factor. Definitely. Soccer. That's one of the big things about soccer. You appreciate the beauty and the differences in talent, and cultures and nationalities. And I mean, talking about soccer in the U.S., the World Cup's here next year. And with the political climate right now, it's going to be very interesting to see how that all shakes out. So I can't wait to see it. I mean, I'm definitely gonna do my best to try to go to a couple of games. I gotta check obviously if Nigeria qualified. I'm not sure. Definitely, right? And being able to just expand that, thought of cultural appreciation that I'm trying to push.
Yeah, I never worked.
Pop in, literally drive down. Yeah, yeah, I definitely, it's something that I'm gonna do my best to get to because I obviously, as a soccer fan, I aspire to either go there or be there or play there. It's a big need to me, but
I think you're going to talk on you'll see more as we let parents know a little bit more about yourself. They're going to see how much that kind of lights you up.
yeah, I mean,
Kind of tell us
so
that we were talking right.
yeah, yeah. As mentioned, obviously, Earth Suleiman Haruna Iya. First name Suleiman, last name Haruna Iya. White and Western brothers, sisters. Solomon, it's the Arabic version of Solomon. So, and actually, Haruna is the Arabic version of Aaron. So it's actually not very difficult, even though my name gets butchered. It's like, bro, you're familiar with these things if you just think a little bit and not be lazy about it, but whatever.
Fine, there's a majority of people that will wait to share their opinion instead of listening to others talk. For most of the time, you see it is what they want to talk about themselves instead of listening to the other person.
Obviously, yeah, and obviously with a name like that, your chances of being born and raised in the American culture is probably not as likely. So appreciating soccer, appreciating culture is, just natural remain in my print self. So I think it's very important to be able to one be able to even talk about the differences that we do have in culture without it getting too far. I think that's the biggest problem human beings have at the end of the day. It literally just boils down to that. It just goes too far. Like, be able to talk about it, be able to critique something, be able to try to fine tune something without it blowing up. I mean, engineers, scientists do this all the time in a fine controlled environment, but we kind of don't want to have that discipline. And that's the word people tend very much because they think discipline, they think rigidness, schedule, being yelled at, being told what to do. But it's just being a disciple of an ideology. The word discipline itself, you break it down. So you just want to be a disciple of principle or ideology that is beneficial to not just yourself but your surroundings around you.
Right.
And I think it's important for us to promote the idea of cultural appreciation, as I've been harping on, because it's just one of the only things that I think is a natural, organic way of humanizing other people. Because I don't think people ever give a thought to how much they do dehumanize it, though, because it's so innate in a lot of cultures. You don't give it second thought, And I'm gonna speak from experience personally. Like, and I tell people this, and it shocks them. Like, my grandmother is old enough to have lived and grew up in Nigeria in a society where they literally were still slaves around. Warring tribes still kind of had dominion over other smaller tribes and weaker tribes and just take those people in and do as they please with them. And my grandmother, growing up in that culture, literally always has this saying of, "Oh, Badi," and Badi is a different culture. The Nupe is kind of the Nupe culture, which I belong to, Nupe tribe, which I belong to. It's kind of dominated, for a little bit. And Badi is still a thriving, tribe in Nigeria. So you can imagine this group of people, which they're hundreds of thousands of, if not millions, have this stereotype and stigma in the society that they live in that they're feeling lesser than, even though literally, bro, we look like you. We're just of different tribal nations, pretty much. That's all it falls down to. But you hold this superiority complex to a point where you're passing it down to generations. Because I grew up listening to my grandma talk bad about people like that. And then they're just people, but it's a stereotype so deeply ingratiated in her that she never even gave it a second thought. She just spouts it out around her family, around her most loved ones. And if you don't ever give it any thought, you're going to pretty much just do the same thing.
You have to be aware enough to be able to break any generational curses in that blood. Some people can just pass them on without even realizing, right?
We're so fucking lazy about thinking about shit. We're so lazy about just taking a step back and just reconsidering and reevaluating today and what our life entailed today and what our life entailed before that. Why and when we're trying to, like, why it is the way it is.
Statement, I think you are your environment. So the reason that you might make culture or you're looking and going by culture seem lazier in comparison, even in the process, not even to look into sources to find out if truth is actual truth or not, right?
Yeah.
It couldn't even be a fine line niche, but in most cases, it's just about you or your dad or then just get caught right up in it.
Yeah.
Right? And endlessly strong.
One of the things about coming here as a kid is for so long, I actually don't talk about this much, but for so long, I wish my parents sent me to the UK, not the US, because it's way bigger with soccer.
Sure.
And Nigeria is a UK British colony. It used to be a British colony. So there was more of a familiarity with that part of the world than with the US. But coming here was the fact that, like, I just I'm very fortunate that I ended up coming to New York specifically and not any other state, because this is the state where you really meet souls, but like a lot of beautiful lost souls, so to speak, because so many people in New York are a mix of something. There's so many people, either you're black, Israeli, and then Puerto nuclear. When they were coming in big time, more than any state. I mean, it's very much, I think, honestly, probably one of the reasons why I got the ability to get to where I am today in life, and be able to talk to people about this, because things happen for a reason. You end up in a place where you're meeting people that in different shades of color than you, but then a lot of them either have very similar ideologies or vibrance to you, or people that look just like you that literally cannot connect to you in any way. And it's crazy. It's really mind blowing, because people, it's hard to be able to adjust and grow into, I guess, yourself and into a different society that you're not familiar with, while being able to not almost, also trying to change it actively and put your own imprint on it.
It also takes the ability to step back.
Yeah. And yeah.
And I think, and I can only speak to my own opinion, my own self on this a lot, is that's not an easy thing. If the people who brought you up might have not helped you find those tools and resources or the ways that have their school, they just fall back to their pattern. Children are always going to end up being shifts with any of there's trauma.
Yeah.
Stuck in that age when there was trauma.
Speaking of found audience, a little bit about myself. I moved here to the U.S. at 13, 14, so pretty much as a kid. But in here as that age pretty much obviously means disconnection with your family and not being able to have certain rituals that most kids and teenagers that age have with their parents, or so to speak, and certain family members, and pretty much getting an early onset of, figure life out.
Right.
Because a lot of people have that too. It's not I know obviously I'm speaking from personal experience, but this is millions, hundreds of millions of people, growing up with that lack of direct guidance, or lack of, very direct shaping of how the most important and delicate years of your life can shape you or break you, pretty much. Those are the ages that you can really instill that either work ethic or understand about the world, or pretty much not build it, and becomes impossible to, instill in an adult. If you go through those ages without understanding how hard life is and how hard you have to work in your own life to just make it and pride, and you grow up delusional around that age that, you're young this way, and not having that, hey, that figure of reminder, just that sense of like, hey, like shit's gonna get real. It's gonna get rough for people, and that's a lot of people's lives. So many people I know, one of my neighbors now, I don't know, she was telling me that she had a kid in early 20s. My coworker I used to work with, she had a kid in the teen store. I'm like, those years, that's when things really, shit gets real, and you really don't know, or are not sure what you're gonna do with your life, or and that's when you're about to skyrocket.
Yeah, if you're able to be strong enough in your convictions, or have had then figured out in your mind or otherwise based on your experiences that you want to do that, it's shown that that can be beneficial. But that's where I feel like it really does go back to even your environment. I grew up in an atmosphere where you were sold on the American dream.
Yeah.
Because mom and dad were so busy trying to just pay the bills, in most cases day to day, that figuring out how to acquire your dream or otherwise wasn't in the cards.
Was not a
Thinking realistically, then it didn't really apply. And as much as everybody can dream and have their dreams, that really wasn't true. And that isn't the case. It's a terrible mindset to kind of continue to have. Who did found their people to work with. It was never done alone. The American dream is kind of built on making Americans think that isolation.
Right. Individualism is the way, rather than, your own way. Exactly. And that idea of, picking yourself up by bootstraps and figuring life out and don't wait for a handout, which I obviously somewhat, you know, subscribe to that ideology. I like that there's obviously merit to that ideology, but you can't just, it can be a zero sum game because that's kind of where we're living in now, unfortunately. We're living in some game to a point, where the empathy from the most influential, most powerful, and, wealthiest among us is just absent. And they only got that influential and powerful because it was the innate desire more, 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 and not checking themselves. You're a person at the end of the day. You can be as smart as you want, successful you want. You got to check yourself at some point. But that being able to have that honest conversation without it getting far. Most people that are very powerful and smart, they don't want to have that conversation because innately they genuinely believe they are better than another person, and it's a very hard thing to contend with as a person feeling more talented, feeling more smarter, feeling a ways towards other people and then thinking they should have the same say as you.
Yeah.
I think that's what the most powerful people struggle with. They're like, no way, bro, I'm not gonna do that. Like, and that's, I think, where we need to get to ultimately. But I think it's very important to go back to what you were talking about earlier. Growing up in a family where the American dream, it's not as much of a,
It was a marketing pitch.
it was a marketing pitch. But it's crazy that as somebody that, with before circles, I would have never thought that because the ideology is all white people subscribe to this because they push it. So obviously they don't just push it, they subscribe to it and they are all chasing the same thing. And some of them make it and some of them don't.
Because it's subconscious. So ingrained.
It's so ingrained.
In marketing,
And
every 5 seconds and whatever you might watch on your stream, there's another ad tailor-made to try to sell you on something to buy more of what you to make more, to spend more time making money, to buy. That's why we have a big problem. Guilty of vanity, but it is what it's like. It's just becoming more and more clear.
and then that's where the individual mindset is always, kicked and push. People are more likely to look up to Elon Musk than some person that wasn't as successful but did way more altruistic things.
Maybe the aim should be, and a good way to kind of move forward is them to say, kill other people.
Yeah,
Warn with, yeah, definitely recognize in those other people that are willing. That's others. It better not just how they appear.
right.
That can be apparent. If someone doesn't want to help others,
Definitely. I mean, the problem is though, like, the people that have the resources and the tools and the power to do that, their mindset is gatekeeping. Their mindset is not uplifting. Their mindset is dominion, control, and being able to
not all.
wield. Not all.
There are some. Yeah, there'd be that.
Definitely cold to the gold, fine. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That even that mindset of keeping us from then achieving our goal, keep us from reaching out maybe to that one person.
Person that was like, want to break the under my partners this whole bit. Right. Right.
Yeah, definitely. And this the thing, if you think about being named top body, you gotta be able to not just reconsider and adjust your own mindset, but like you said, take a step back and look at it without taking it personal and looking at it like, all right, you want to make this thing happen or you want to achieve this particular thing. Is this path that you're taking or this, ideology you're holding on to your equity?
Well, I think maybe even in a way, look at it as a way to interact with people.
Yeah.
And building with that too as a way to interact. Like,
Yeah.
but then stop dreaming when dreaming's supposed.
It's supposed to be it's crazy. 3 years for. It's the one thing that it's literally what got us where we got to. We got bridges, we're flying, we got cars because people dreamt. Because people are like, yo, like, damn, I wish I could go faster. I wish I could roll. Exactly. They want to get up there. I wish I could get up there. We definitely don't dream enough. Dreams are killed a lot, and personally or as a collective, it's hard. That's what we got to be able to talk about. It's hard as fuck, but we need to be able to try at the very least. If you don't try, I look at it this way, and this is one of the reasons, quite frankly, I'm doing this. You have one life. If you're not gonna go all out, if you're not gonna try at least to go all out at certain stages of your life, because you can't do it all the time, you're gonna burn out and just quite literally or figuratively, but the mindset should be pushing down below, not just for your own personal gains, but just for what's around you, to be able to thrive a lot longer than after you're here. At least that's my mindset. That's my aspirations as a person. And I try to just, when you listen to your instincts and see how what's happenstance and what's in your control, being able to just differentiate the two and know what it is that resonates with you personally. I think that's what people need to take away from life a lot more themselves and push what resonates with them more.
Because so many is stuck in survival mode
Yeah.
that in cases they're going to be looking to escape whatever they were doing, and otherwise it's just even wanting more because they don't right back into your mind. They're not able to then pivot and adjust
Yeah.
and recognize maybe even in ourselves our own pattern,
Yeah.
and then be able to say, "I need help."
Survival mode is where we need to definitely ascend from. So, I think it has its benefits. Obviously makes people get off their ass. Makes them being able to just go work. But I think at the end of the day, the myth of people being lazy and don't want to work, I think, is a little bit overblown. I think people do want to work, but they just want to do what they want to do and what resonates with them and what they connect with. And people will work as hard as they need to for what they believe in, for their dreams and goals, if it's really achievable.
But they can only do that if their bellies they got a full belly and their kids are getting it. They can't work with things you really like to do when you got your mortgage or your rent payment.
Yeah, I mean, and maybe not even having full bellies and having it all cushy, but having access to full bellies or having access to cushiness. And not everyone is gonna access it the same way because not everyone needs it as the same as the other person. Someone needs a little more than others, and even having that mindset that we all need to uplift each other is the problem. So we call it socialism in America. To share resources, being able to uplift each other, in a systematic way.
They branded it another way to try to make it look like it wasn't what was best for people.
Exactly. And because we talked about this idea of rugged individualism, tending like that's the only way, that's the best way, even though there's some merit to that, they turn something that is slightly true and make it an absolute true. That's what we need to be able to talk about. There are half truths that we need to accept as half truths, or quarter truths, however people want to break it down. But we need to be able to not just accept them, but understand it. Like, all right, there's elements of this that has merit, but I can't just take it all at its face value.
Get more in depth about it, but it is really is. You've lived over here for how long now?
Yeah, 15. God.
See, and it's meant to pull you back into the cycles that are gonna just keep you buying.
Literally. And I've gone home a lot less in the last 10 years than I did in the first 10 years when I was asleep. You know?
Yeah.
And it's because you're growing up, you're an adult. You don't have the luxury of just traveling, home as much all the time just for leisure. I travel quite a bit, but I'm fortunate enough to travel, but it's mostly for business reasons, or for financial reasons or career reasons. It's hardly ever just for, okay, I'm seeing family and just having a good time. And that's part of the beauty. I mean, and part of the beauty of that is being able to experience so many different things you never even thought possible. As we've mentioned, obviously, off camera, like being in Fiji last year and seeing the fact that what the demographic there is, it's black people and Indians, like Indians from India. And like Indians got there around the beach, and they got there due to, I think they wanted to for the farming and to industrialize the island pretty much, and they did do that, man, masses. But what interested me even more, obviously, be personal, being black, was the fact that there's actual goddamn black people there, and anybody watching this has their phone on, they look up a map of Fiji and see where it is, like literally in the middle of fucking nowhere. These people, either black people that migrated thousands and thousands of years ago, that pretty much just lived and thrived, even through, when the ice age happened and the planet changed, the full map changed from, obviously lower sea level rising, changing the whole face of the earth pretty much. That's how far back people have been moving on the planet. It's so, especially in America, Americans are so focused on the last 300-400 years. It's crazy that we don't look any further back than that. Like that's all that matters, and it blows my mind. Like
It's history. In most time, 9 times out of 10, it's all written by the victor of the wars. The people that took over and took over. It's really hard to go back and not see where they're all their remnants all over.
it's crazy. Yeah, yeah, and it's crazy. Like we're talking about the victors, and obviously in the last 300-400 years, we can label it as either Europeans, or we can label it as white people, or we can label it as capitalism, or nationalism, or Christian. Like there are literally different labels that kind of become intersectionality. Yeah, and that's what I wanted to get to. That's what I wanted to get to. And the last 300-400 years, it all started off of a dream of people serving themselves.
Yeah.
They never cared about being white or promoting whiteness or European power. No, they just wanted as much power and riches for themselves as possible. And we just all became collateral damage. And we're just the side effect of all that desire and power that these people, few people, that literally just had so much wealth that they didn't know what to do with it. They decided to just send out, resources and boats and ships and people to just dominate awful, calling a bunch of millions and hundreds of millions of people all over Africa, South America, Central America. Like, so the reason why I say it's very relevant, even though it's not just revisionist history, is knowing that being told what you are, that you're capable of a lot more than what you're told. Being black, you're told you're less. Being black, you're told you're smaller, you're inferior. And as much as black people don't like talking about it, or white people don't like hearing it, or white people don't like talking about it, it's like, well, this is obviously a big fat elephant in the room that is being constructed. And it's not something that is natural, because it was constructed by, as you just said, the victors. The collateral damage was racism. The collateral damage was just, what? If it means holding on to our power and deputizing a few people that look like us and making them feel like they're part of the team, that means we're going to stay in power for millenniums. And that's what's happened. That's pretty much what's happened. People get touchy about, talks like All Lives Matter, and obviously the protests that happened during 2020 with cops and police brutality and all that, but we never want to talk about how police departments even started in the first place in America. They started because slaves that were either being fighting for their lives or fighting to escape or being chained. A lot of white men that were lived here were deputized, given a gun, a badge, and 40 acres. They're like, bro, all I have to do is just brutalize a few dark people. Hell yeah, I'll do it. And I'm gonna pass it to my children to learn how to do it, and we're gonna keep this power rolling. And even white people that are not as wealthy as slave owners, they just became co-signers of the system and built this powerful mammoth that we're all living, product that we're living in now. And the only reason why we're even able to live and talk a lot freer than a lot of people that look like me used to is because humanity got involved. So many white people and so many black people, and they humanized each other to a level where it all became everybody's cause. No real legislation passed in this country happened without white support. Not the civil rights, not obviously freeing slaves, nothing happens without white support. And that's the part that's always missed. That's the part I think America misses. America always upholds the wrong white people, I think. I think there's so many other altruistic, virtuous, smarter, more ambitious white people that never got the shine that they did, because the more dominating, more power-hungry ones stifled them out pretty much.
You learned how to shape a narrative through visual instead of through reading. So the less that others were able to decipher the truth from, became more reliant upon just the visual mediums. They trusted in those mainstream news sources, which have just been completely tainted now on all aspects, unless you're authentic and telling truth. Those people do ring true. There are a few of them still around, but in most cases, that's where it was done. And realizing how simple and easy it was, because everybody loves stories.
Yeah.
That if you then shape the story about the people who are really preying on the beneath, continuing to take, right? reason you got except to keep making more.
Exactly.
But I think what's really not told or shared with most people is that in the same way that like it's that rewarding to give back and you share it with others, that for people that must be that truly self-indulgent and to do that much, it must be in that same way, in that same rewarding, the way that we see our children, like Migo and other, somewhere in that like 95%, like it's all of them. And I only think about that because I'm trying to be empathetic about even the people on the other side of things, or people who why would you think or feel this way? Well, something must have happened. Europe must have shaped you. Kids are not born there.
Yeah.
We they are shaped based on how they are brought and what they see and feel and more.
Crazy. I mean, it's just one of those things. Like you're born in. I'm fortunate enough to be born in a multicultural society. You know, even though people don't really think of Africa as a multicultural society, that's what Africa really is. You know, Nigeria. I'm Nigerian. Nigeria is just a name pretty much that is assigned and a line drawn by European colonizers to do an encounter. There's tribes of people. There are people live in Nigeria, certain tribes that you go to a different African country, you'll find those people's tribes living there, which obviously makes no sense because if you're of the same tribe, you should be living in similar, obvious geolocations. But that's what colonization does to you. But being fortunate enough to be born in that multicultural society and then come into a society like America where literally every human being is viewed as an opportunity to just get up on and someone, make money off of someone, which is very unique compared to anywhere else in the world, really. Obviously, capitalism is global and everyone wants to make a buck and you use your fellow man to create resources and make money. But here, it's like, minute the whole thing was formed, like, yo, this is what we're here for. We're here to make money. We're here to pillage each other's literally time, labor, and resources to just one-upping. Not being able to talk about that, or accepting that too much or too far, be like, damned if we do, like to hell or high water, pretty much taking it that level. I think that's the sickness that America is going through right now, because there's so many people that are struggling that are Black, white, African immigrants and non-immigrants, and it's mostly because of just one thing. It's because we've all been caught in this system of, yo, you just got to make it on your